What if the very first thing you do every morning, before breakfast, before anything else, is quietly raising your blood sugar without you even realizing it? I'm not talking about sugar. I'm not talking about bread or juice or anything obvious. I'm talking about something that's sitting in almost every kitchen in the world right now. Something most people consider completely harmless, maybe even healthy. Your morning coffee. Now, before you close this video, stay with me. Because what I'm about to share with you is not about giving up coffee. It's the opposite. It's about learning how to use coffee in a way that can actually protect your blood sugar, improve your insulin sensitivity, and give you more stable energy throughout the entire day. And the difference between the way most people drink coffee and the way I'm going to show you today is the difference between a habit that quietly works against you and one that actively works for you every single morning. If you're over 60, if you have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, or if your fasting blood sugar keeps coming back higher than it should no matter what you do, this video was made for you. Stay with me all the way through because we're going to go step by step, and by the end, you'll have a clear, simple method you can start tomorrow morning. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call George. George is 67 years old, retired engineer, lives with his wife, and by every measure, he was doing everything right. He cut out sugar. He stopped eating white bread. He walked 30 minutes every morning without fail. He never missed a dose of his medication. And yet, every single time he checked his fasting blood sugar, the numbers were stubbornly high, anywhere from 140 to 155 milligrams per deciliter in the morning, before he'd eaten a single bite of food. He was frustrated. He felt like his body wasn't responding. He felt like no matter how hard he tried, something was always pulling his numbers back up. In one of our conversations, almost as an afterthought, he described his morning routine. He woke up, walked straight to the kitchen, and before anything else, before sitting down, before eating, before anything, he made himself a strong black coffee. Nothing in it, just black. That was it. That was the missing piece. That single habit, so ordinary, so seemingly harmless, was triggering a silent blood sugar spike every morning before his day had even started. And once we understood that and adjusted how he was taking his coffee, his numbers began to shift in a matter of weeks. George's story is not unusual. In fact, it's one of the most common patterns I see. And today, I want to explain exactly why this happens, why coffee taken the wrong way raises blood sugar, and more importantly, how coffee taken the right way can actually become one of your most powerful tools for blood sugar control. Research published in journals like Diabetes Care and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has shown that the timing of coffee consumption, what you combine with it, and how much you drink relative to your body weight can increase insulin sensitivity by up to 40% and reduce the risk of progressing from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes by as much as 50% in adults over 60. Those are not small numbers, and they come from research, not from marketing. The best part? This doesn't require you to buy any expensive supplements. It doesn't require a strict diet or extended fasting. It's about adjusting a habit you already have, one that's already part of your daily life, in a very precise way. That's what we're going to walk through today, step by step. Before we get into the coffee method itself, I want to make sure we understand the landscape, because the more clearly you see the problem, the more motivated you'll be to make the right changes. Type 2. Diabetes is what medical professionals call a silent condition. It doesn't announce itself dramatically. There's no sudden pain, no clear warning alarm. It builds slowly, like water filling a glass, quietly, steadily, until one day it overflows. According to data from major endocrinology institutes, more than 30% of people over the age of 60 are already showing signs of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, and many of them don't know it. By the time someone reaches their 80s, the rate climbs to roughly 1 in 2 people. The early symptoms are easy to dismiss. A little more thirst than usual, getting tired earlier than you used to, small cuts or bruises that seem to take longer to heal, occasional blurred vision that you chalk up to aging, a mild tingling in your feet that you figure is just normal. Meanwhile, elevated blood sugar is quietly doing damage on the inside, to blood vessels, to nerves, to the kidneys, to your eyes, to the heart. Not in dramatic ways at first, slowly, gradually, over years, until one day the cumulative damage is too large to ignore. Here's what makes this especially frustrating. So many people who develop blood sugar problems are actually doing everything they've been told to do. They've reduced their carbohydrates, they're watching their portions, they're walking regularly, they're taking their medication faithfully. And still, unexplained spikes, persistent fatigue, numbers that don't improve the way they should. In my experience, when someone is following all the right dietary advice and still struggling, the answer is almost never in what they're eating. It's almost always in how they're starting their day. And it almost always comes back to coffee. Because when coffee is taken the wrong way, at the wrong time, with the wrong things, in the wrong amount, it doesn't support your metabolism. It triggers a hormonal response that tells your body to release stored sugar into the bloodstream, preparing for a physical threat that never actually arrives. But here's the good news. And this is exactly why we're here today. The same cup of coffee, taken the right way, at the right time, in the right amount for your body, does the exact opposite. It becomes a natural insulin sensitizer. It helps regulate how your body absorbs glucose. It works with your metabolism, not against it. To understand how, we need to look at what's actually inside your cup. Most people think of coffee and think of one thing: caffeine. It's the most well-known ingredient, and it gets all the attention. But caffeine is actually just one of hundreds of compounds found in coffee. And for blood sugar control specifically, it's not even the most important one. There are 4 compounds in particular that deserve your attention. The first is chlorogenic acid. Think of chlorogenic acid as a gatekeeper sitting at the entrance to your small intestine. Its job is to slow down the enzymes responsible for breaking down carbohydrates. When those enzymes work more slowly, glucose enters your bloodstream more gradually, in a smooth, controlled rise rather than a sharp spike. This is one of the most valuable mechanisms in the entire story of coffee and blood sugar. The second is polyphenols. Coffee is actually one of the richest sources of dietary polyphenols in the world, even more than many fruits and vegetables, depending on the diet. Polyphenols are potent antioxidants, and in the context of blood sugar, their most important job is protecting the beta cells of the pancreas. Beta cells are the cells responsible for producing insulin. As we age, those cells gradually deteriorate. Polyphenols help preserve them, keeping them functional for longer. The third is natural magnesium. This surprises a lot of people. Coffee contains a meaningful amount of magnesium, a mineral that participates in over 300 metabolic reactions in the body, including the process by which muscle cells absorb glucose from the bloodstream. Many older adults have quietly low magnesium levels without realizing it, and that deficiency directly impairs insulin function. The fourth, and perhaps the most surprising, is GLP-1 stimulation. GLP-1 is a gut hormone. You may have heard of it in the context of newer diabetes medications. Some of them work by mimicking GLP-1. When this hormone is released, it signals the pancreas to produce insulin in response to glucose. It slows the rate at which food leaves the stomach, and it creates a feeling of fullness. Coffee, consumed correctly, triggers your body to produce this hormone naturally. Taken together, these 4 mechanisms explain why research shows that properly timed coffee consumption can increase insulin sensitivity by up to 40% and cut the risk of type 2 diabetes progression by up to 50% in older adults. But here's the question. If coffee has all this potential, why are so many people drinking it every day and still struggling with their blood sugar? The answer is in 3 very common mistakes. Mistakes that cancel out every single one of those benefits. I want you to listen carefully to these 3 mistakes because it's very likely that you're making at least one of them right now. And if you are, it's not your fault. No one ever taught us to think about coffee this carefully. But once you know, you can change it. Mistake number 1. Black coffee on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning. This one is extremely common. For millions of people, strong black coffee, the moment they wake up, is a sacred ritual. It feels right. It feels like the natural start to the day. But physiologically, here's what's actually happening. After 8 to 10 hours without food, your body is in what's called a catabolic state. It's been running on stored fuel overnight, and it's actively searching for energy sources. When you add caffeine, alone with nothing else, it sends a spike through your cortisol and glucagon levels. Both of those hormones signal your liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream. The result is a blood sugar rise of anywhere from 20 to 40 milligrams per deciliter before you've eaten a single thing. Your body is reacting as if you need to be ready to sprint or fight. But that threat never arrives, and all that released glucose has nowhere to go. This is the exact phenomenon George was experiencing. That silent spike. Every single morning. Mistake number 2. Drinking coffee after 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Many people reach for a coffee in the mid-afternoon to combat that familiar energy dip that hits after lunch. It seems logical, but the caffeine consumed at that hour keeps cortisol elevated well into the evening, precisely the hours when your body needs to start bringing its stress hormones down. Elevated cortisol in the evening directly interferes with your overnight insulin sensitivity. Your body uses those nighttime hours to recalibrate your metabolic state for the following day. When that process is disrupted, you wake up the next morning with a fasting blood sugar that's higher than it should be, and you have no idea why. That mysterious high number you see on your morning glucose reading? Your afternoon coffee from yesterday may be partly to blame. Mistake number 3. Adding sugar, sweetened creamer, condensed milk, or artificial sweeteners. This one is the most widespread, and its consequences are the most quietly damaging. Regular sugar, even a small amount, triggers an immediate blood sugar spike and trains your pancreas to release insulin reactively, which over time contributes directly to insulin resistance. But what about artificial sweeteners? Aspartame, sucralose, acesulfame potassium. These are marketed as the smart alternative because they don't contain calories. And in terms of calories, that's technically true. However, several studies published in recent years have demonstrated that these compounds significantly alter the composition of the gut microbiome, the community of bacteria that regulates not just digestion but also your body's inflammatory response and insulin sensitivity. The result is paradoxical. You're avoiding sugar to protect your metabolism, but the artificial sweeteners you're using instead are creating the same metabolic problem through a different pathway. It's a well-marketed trap. If you need some sweetness in your coffee, the option with the best current evidence is pure stevia. Not stevia blended with other sweeteners, just stevia on its own. Though ideally, over time, gradually adjusting to the natural taste of coffee gives your taste buds the best reset. Now we get to the practical heart of this video. The method I'm about to share is something I call the C3+1 Method. 4 specific steps, 4 small adjustments to how you use coffee throughout your day. No extraordinary effort, no additional expense. But together, they create the conditions for coffee to genuinely support your blood sugar rather than undermine it. The C stands for coffee itself, the foundation. The 3 refers to 3 strategic moments in the day when that coffee should be consumed. And the +1 is a bonus step that many people find to be the most transformative of all. When you wake up, your body is emerging from an overnight fast, and that actually creates a window of heightened insulin sensitivity. Your cells are more receptive to glucose uptake than at almost any other point in the day. The question is, do you use that window wisely or do you waste it? Black coffee alone wastes it. But coffee paired with a source of protein changes everything. Here's the specific protocol. Prepare your morning coffee, about 150 to 200 milliliters. Then add 10 to 15 grams of an unflavored whey protein isolate. If that's not accessible to you, 2 to 3 tablespoons of hydrolyzed collagen works well. It dissolves easily and is widely available. Add a small splash of whole milk or an unsweetened plant-based milk. Then finish with a quarter to half a teaspoon of cinnamon powder. Why does this combination work so well? The leucine in whey protein signals your pancreas to produce insulin in a gradual, controlled way, rather than the reactive spike you'd get from caffeine alone. Cinnamon contains compounds that mimic insulin's action at the cellular level. Multiple studies have confirmed it improves glucose uptake without triggering a blood sugar spike. And coffee in this context, supported, not isolated, activates all of its beneficial compounds without driving up cortisol. Research published in 2023 confirmed that this specific combination of coffee, protein, and cinnamon reduces post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 29% compared to black coffee consumed alone on an empty stomach. Think of it as building a shield before the rest of your day begins. This is one of the best-kept secrets in clinical nutrition for blood sugar management, and it consistently surprises people when I explain it. 20 to 30 minutes before each main meal, lunch or dinner, drink a small black coffee. No sugar, no cream, no sweeteners. A pinch of cinnamon if you'd like, but nothing else. Here's the mechanism. That pre-meal coffee activates chlorogenic acid right at the moment it's needed most, just before your intestines are about to receive a load of carbohydrates. The chlorogenic acid temporarily inhibits the enzymes that break those carbohydrates down, slowing their conversion to glucose and their absorption into the bloodstream. The result is a much smoother, more controlled post-meal glucose curve. Research in diabetes care shows that this single habit can reduce post-meal blood sugar readings by up to 35 milligrams per deciliter. That's a meaningful shift, not from medication, not from eliminating foods you love, but from the timing of something you were probably going to drink anyway. If you're away from home or don't have access to a coffee maker at lunchtime, you can brew your coffee at home and carry it in a small thermos. Temperature doesn't affect chlorogenic acid's metabolic activity. Coffee after exercise. When I say exercise here, I'm not talking about a gym routine or anything that requires equipment. I mean whatever movement you already do. Even a brisk 20-minute walk around the neighborhood counts. Here's why the timing matters. After any physical activity, your muscles have been consuming glucose for fuel. They're now in a state of high insulin receptivity, actively seeking to replenish their glycogen stores. The cell doors are wide open. If you drink a plain black coffee within 15 to 30 minutes of finishing that walk, the caffeine potentiates your muscles' ability to absorb glucose, extending that state of elevated insulin sensitivity. Research suggests this effect can persist for several hours after exercise when coffee is added to the equation. Instead of glucose circulating in your bloodstream looking for somewhere to go, it gets directed into muscle tissue where it belongs. This doesn't require a precise caffeine dose. A regular small coffee of 150 milliliters is sufficient. No additions needed, just the coffee, in that post-movement window. The +1. Afternoon coffee with magnesium and L-theanine. This step is for those who enjoy a second coffee during the day and don't want to give that up, but who also don't want it interfering with their sleep or their overnight blood sugar. The solution is this. Take that second coffee before 2 p.m. as an absolute cutoff. Not 3, not 2:30, ideally not later than 2. And pair it with 2 specific supplements. The first is magnesium citrate, 200 milligrams, dissolved in a glass of water alongside your coffee. As we discussed, magnesium is one of the most important minerals for insulin sensitivity, and deficiency is surprisingly common in older adults. Taking it in the early afternoon helps prepare your body for a metabolically stable night. The second is L-theanine, 100 to 200 milligrams. This is an amino acid found naturally in green tea that has a remarkable property. It smooths out the stimulating effects of caffeine without eliminating them entirely. The combination of caffeine and L-theanine produces what researchers sometimes call calm alertness. You get the focus and energy lift from the coffee, but without the anxiety, cortisol spike, or nervous energy that coffee alone can produce in some people. Most importantly, this combination means your afternoon coffee won't disrupt your sleep architecture or elevate your morning fasting glucose. For decades, the standard advice has been no more than 2 cups of coffee a day. That's it, 2 cups. But that guideline doesn't account for body weight, activity level, metabolic status, or individual caffeine tolerance. It's a one-size answer to a situation that doesn't have a one-size solution. Here's the formula we use in clinical practice. Take your body weight in kilograms and divide by 30. The result is the maximum number of small coffees, 150 to 200 milliliters each, you can drink per day without overloading your nervous system or interfering with your glucose metabolism. If you weigh 65 kilograms, your maximum is about 2.2 cups per day. If you weigh 80 kilograms, you can go up to about 2.7. And if you've had a day with moderate physical activity for an hour or more, you can add half a cup to that maximum, because exercise improves your metabolic tolerance to caffeine. How will you know if you're in the right range? Your body will tell you clearly. If after coffee you feel alert but calm, no jitteriness, no racing heart, no sudden hunger 2 hours later, you're in the right zone. If you feel palpitations, irritability, restlessness, or that crash that makes you immediately want another cup, you're over the limit or drinking at the wrong time. After 60, caffeine tolerance decreases naturally. The effects of each cup become more pronounced, which means each cup matters more, and the timing and quantity both deserve more attention. One practical tip: use a measuring cup or a designated coffee mug that holds exactly 150 to 200 milliliters and commit to always using that size. Having a clear visual reference is one of the most effective ways to maintain the habit without having to think about it constantly. Even if you apply the C3+1 method perfectly, there are three things that can quietly undo all of it. I want to name them clearly so you can avoid them. Saboteur number 1. Artificial sweeteners. We covered this briefly, but it's worth repeating because it surprises so many people. Aspartame, sucralose, acesulfame potassium. These are in an enormous number of sugar-free products, and many people use them in coffee every single day thinking they're making the smart choice. But accumulating research shows they alter the gut microbiome in ways that paradoxically increase insulin resistance over time. You're trying to protect your metabolism, but these compounds are quietly working against it through a pathway that most people never suspect. If you need a touch of sweetness, use pure stevia, not a blend, pure stevia, and use it sparingly as you work toward adjusting your palate to the natural taste of coffee. Saboteur number 2. Low-quality decaffeinated coffee. Decaf feels like the safe choice, the gentle option, the one that won't disturb your sleep. And it can be, but only if you choose carefully. The problem is most inexpensive decaffeinated coffees are processed using chemical solvents. That process doesn't just strip out caffeine, it strips out most of the chlorogenic acid and a significant portion of the magnesium, which are precisely the compounds responsible for coffee's metabolic benefits. If you prefer decaf, look specifically for products that state they were processed using the Swiss water process. That method removes caffeine without chemical solvents and preserves the bioactive compounds your body actually benefits from. Saboteur number 3. Pairing coffee with high glycemic foods. This is socially the hardest one to change because it's embedded in so many cultural routines. The breakfast pastry with the morning coffee, the biscuit or white toast alongside the afternoon cup. These combinations are familiar. They feel comfortable, but they completely neutralize the chlorogenic acids effect. The coffee is working to slow glucose absorption. The refined carbohydrate is accelerating it. They're working in opposite directions at the same moment. If you want to eat something alongside your coffee, choose options that don't generate a glucose spike, a small handful of unsalted nuts, a piece of aged cheese, a hard-boiled egg, or simply nothing at all. Well-timed coffee on its own is already doing good work. I want to share one more story before we close. A patient I'll call Margaret came to see me about 2 years ago. She was 71 years old, and she came in with an HbA1c of 8.2%, meaning her average blood sugar over the previous 3 months had been significantly elevated. But the number wasn't what worried her most. What worried her most was the fear, the constant, low-level anxiety of not knowing how her blood sugar would behave when she was away from home. She loved visiting her grandchildren, but traveling had become stressful because she never felt stable enough to relax and just enjoy the time. She was always checking her levels, always calculating, always bracing for a spike she couldn't explain. When I asked about her morning routine, she described something I hear constantly: a coffee with whole milk and 2 teaspoons of sugar, taken standing at the kitchen counter before breakfast, and then around 5 in the afternoon, another coffee to push through until dinner. She'd been doing this since her 40s. It was as automatic as breathing. I proposed a simple experiment. Apply the C3+1 method for 8 weeks. No changes to her diet, no changes to her medication, just the coffee. In the first week, she reported that the mid-morning energy crash she'd lived with for years had almost completely disappeared. By the 4th week, when she came in with her glucose diary, her post-meal readings had dropped noticeably. Instead of hitting 180 or 190 milligrams per deciliter after lunch, she was consistently landing below 150. At the 8-week mark, we got her lab results. Her HbA1c had dropped from 8.2% to 6.6%. In 8 weeks, without changing her medication, without a restrictive diet, without adding any new exercise routine, just by changing how she used her coffee. But what moved me most wasn't the number. It was what she said when she came in to collect the results. She told me she'd taken a trip to see her grandchildren the month before, the first trip in 3 years where she hadn't packed her fear alongside her clothes. She'd walked around the city with them. She'd eaten family meals without silently calculating every bite. She felt free. She said coffee had become her ritual of freedom. That is what this method is ultimately about. not just lower numbers on a lab report. Giving people back their quality of life. I want to close by helping you see where everything we've discussed fits within a larger framework of blood sugar health. Think of it as a three-legged table. If any one of the legs is missing, the table wobbles. The first leg is coffee. Used correctly, through the C3+1 method, you're activating chlorogenic acid, polyphenols, natural magnesium, and GLP-1 stimulation, all working in coordination. That's the foundation we've built today. The second leg is protein and fiber. Aiming for 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, combined with at least 30 grams of dietary fiber, maintains satiety, slows glucose absorption, and gives your body the raw materials it needs to repair and function. The third leg is aerobic movement. 30 to 45 minutes of brisk walking 3 to 5 times per week multiplies the benefits of everything else. Muscle tissue is the body's largest consumer of glucose. Keeping it active is quite literally the best metabolic medicine available without a prescription. And if you want an additional boost, there's growing evidence around berberine, a natural compound that, taken at 500 milligrams alongside your morning coffee, may improve insulin sensitivity by an additional 25%. However, if you're already on diabetes medication, speak with your doctor before adding berberine. It has real metabolic effects and may require adjustments to your existing treatment. Let me bring everything together. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to make sure you leave with 3 ideas that stay with you. First, coffee is not your enemy. Consumed correctly, it is one of the most powerful natural tools available for blood sugar support. Chlorogenic acid, polyphenols, magnesium, and GLP-1 stimulation are all working in your favor, but only when you set the right conditions. Second, the 3 most common mistakes: black coffee on an empty stomach, coffee in the afternoon, and coffee with sugar or artificial sweeteners can silently undermine even the most disciplined dietary efforts. And most people are making at least one of them every single day. Third, the C3+1 method requires no special equipment, no expensive supplements, and no dramatic lifestyle overhaul. It requires adjusting when you drink coffee, what you pair with it, and how much you drink for your body weight. That's it. Your blood sugar control, your energy, and your independence are influenced every day by habits that feel too small to matter. And this one habit, done differently, can change the trajectory. Here's my challenge to you, starting tomorrow morning. Apply just step 1 of the C3+1 method. Coffee with protein and cinnamon for the next 7 days. Only that first step. Don't change anything else. And then come down to the comments and tell me what you noticed first. Was it that mid-morning energy crash disappearing? Was it more stable energy through the afternoon? Was it a lower fasting glucose reading after a few days? I read every comment, and those responses remind me every day exactly why this work matters. If this video gave you something useful, please share it with someone you care about. A family member, a friend, anyone who's been struggling with their blood sugar and feeling like nothing is working. This information is too important to stay in a single conversation. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Every week, we go deeper into the practical, evidence-based habits that can genuinely change your health, without overwhelming you, without extreme measures, and without empty promises. In our next video, we're going to talk about how to safely combine the C3+1 coffee method with intermittent fasting, specifically adapted for people over 60, with a step-by-step approach that reduces risk and maximizes results. You will not want to miss that one. Remember this: it is never too late to begin taking care of yourself. Every sip can be the beginning of something better. I'll see you in the next video.